right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here for the travel grant info session. I appreciate y'all joining me on this afternoon. My name is Jesse Singleton. I am the Assistant Director for Student Support here with the Graduate School. We'll be talking to you a bit about our travel grant, answering some questions for you today as we get rolling here, just admitting the last few folks into our Zoom session. As we go through, please feel free to let me know if you have questions along the way. Feel free to drop them into the chat, raise your hand, and ask them verbally. Any of those work. I'm happy to help you out with answering those questions. The presentation is pretty informal today as we go through, so feel free to let me know what you need. As we get started with the session, if you can please help me out by recording your attendance for the session today. That really helps us with knowing who's applying and who's interested. So if you can scan that QR code there and just log your attendance for me, and then I'll also drop a link in the chat if you prefer to use the direct link. Let me go ahead and grab that really quickly. There is the link if you prefer to just click on that link, just log your attendance for me. I'd really appreciate it so we know who attended today. We're going to do just a brief overview of the travel grant and then give space for any questions you might have. Probably about a half an hour of time today, depending on the amount of questions. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to help you out with it as we go through. If you have questions, again, use that chat. So getting started, first thing I want to let you know is where you can find our application for the travel grant if you haven't found it yet, if you don't know where to find it. And so first things first is how you get there. The travel grant application is linked on our internal funding page on our website. And so if you go to the graduate school webpage and then under funding, you'll see there's a little drop down there. And then there's the internal funding page. There's a lot of really great resources there. But one we're looking for today is the internal funding page. And then there's a QR code there. It'll take you directly to it if you want to go directly there. Once you're on that page, you'll see there's information about our Dodson Research Grant in one heading. And then if you click to the second heading, there's the travel grant information. So they're both on one page. You have to click on the travel grant. There it'll give you all the guidelines and information about the grant, things we're going to talk about today, as well as the link to apply. That's the only place we put the link because we want you to review the guidelines before you apply. So I don't send direct links to the application. I only send folks to that web page. So first thing is making sure you can find it so you can submit your applications and secure that funding. Next, I just want to talk a little bit about what is the grant and its purpose. Hopefully you know what it is. You're already here because you're interested in applying for the travel grant, although we sometimes have some confusion with the Dodson Research Grant and also what we're able to fund with the travel grant. And so I'll talk a bit about that. It is the graduate school's professional development grant that we have for you. It's actually the only professional development grant that we offer here within the graduate school. It's designed to assist you with the cost of travel associated with like an academic conference, a professional organization meeting, or a specialized professional development opportunity. It's written very broadly intentionally. We want you to utilize it for a variety of purposes. We mostly see it for use at academic conferences, but we have had students use it to apply to assist with like the travel to an internship site or things like that. So we are open if you have other ideas on how you could utilize this for specialized professional development, you can apply for it. But again, it is associated with the travel associated with attending some kind of professional development. It is open to virtual and in-person opportunities. And so again, I've mentioned how it's facilitating the travel. If you're virtual, obviously you're not traveling to, but you're still taking part in a professional development opportunity. And so if you're doing something virtually, or if you apply for something that then becomes a virtual opportunity, we can help cover the cost of attendance for like your registration fee and things like that. So it's not exclusive just to going to things in person. And the overall amount of funding that you can receive with the travel grant is $850. That is the cap. You can request less than that if you don't need that much. And there isn't a preference for requesting the full 850 versus 300. Every application is reviewed by its merits, not by the amount requested. But the max you can request is up to $850. What's really important to pay attention to as you think about constructing your application is what is fundable and what is non-fundable. Every year we have students that make some mistakes in this area of their proposal, and it does lead to their proposal being disqualified. We do receive a good amount of applications, and so we are very strict on our review policies. You have to meet all of the guidelines in order to really be considered. If you do not meet the guidelines, we will not review your application. We'll return it to you and let you know you're not being considered. And so you have to be very careful about what you ask for in your application and only request things that are fundable. So things that we can pay for is things like your conference registration to attend. We can help fund your ground transportation, so bus travel, Uber to get to the conference site, things like that. And we can help cover the cost of your hotel stay if you're traveling somewhere through a recognizable chain. All of those things are done through reimbursement. All funding through the travel grant is done through reimbursement, not through a travel advance. And that is also why we have some restrictions on what we're able to pay for. But you must follow the student travel guidelines and have travel authorization in order to receive your funding. That's also really key. If you apply for the travel grant and you write a great application and the graduate school selects you and says, this is great, we want to provide you this funding, but you don't follow the travel authorization process, you will not get your funding. That is a university guideline. So please make sure that you go through the process of logging your travel appropriately, working with your departmental admins, and booking everything appropriately so that you can receive your funding. I'm not going to talk about the student travel process in depth here. That's a whole separate entity and office that controls that. But I will have there on the screen there, you can scan and go directly to the student travel website. It's very important you familiarize yourself with that website when you're applying, so you make sure you meet all the guidelines there. There are things that we cannot pay for with the grant. And I want to make sure you're aware of this. We are not able to pay for the cost of professional memberships. And this is a key one. So sometimes students will write into their application that, if we pay $50 to make them a member of the organization, the registration fee is cut in half, right? And so it's actually a cost savings for the graduate school. And while that's great, we cannot pay for your professional membership institutionally. So we encourage you to just include the full freight cost as opposed to asking for your membership to be paid for. We are unable to, from a university perspective, pay for it. What you may consider doing to help make your application more competitive, and we'll talk in the review kind of rubric phase of the presentation about how we evaluate budgets, but indicating that you're already a member and you've taken on that additional step to help lower your cost will make your application more competitive overall. But again, if that's a barrier, just ask for the full freight. We would rather pay the entire amount because we cannot pay for your professional membership. We also cannot pay for any supplies or equipment needed to participate or attend the conference. Examples I use there would be requesting a new webcam for a digital conference. We cannot buy your webcam. So if you need any specialized equipment, that would be something you need to seek additional outside funding from someone else or pay out of pocket. Again, please don't include those in your proposal. We don't pay per diem. That is like the daily cost, like for meals and things like that. There is a per diem rate with the travel office, but that is for professional staff members. And we are not able to cover per diem through the travel grant. And so if you do attend, meals and things like that would be at your own expense or with another source of funding outside the graduate school. And the last one, this one's a big one, and it may be a bit counterintuitive, but I will explain. We are not able to cover the cost of airfare with the travel grant. There are very specific guidelines at the institution about how we can purchase airfare, and it does not play well with the travel grant and the timelines for the travel grant. When you are using university funds to purchase air travel, it has to be done through the university's travel agent, and it cannot be done via reimbursement. As I mentioned at the top of our fundable, non-fundable slide, everything we fund the travel grant is through reimbursement. So we cannot fund your airfare. What we find is that it's very difficult for students to line up their schedules in a way that the travel grant can fund them along with their airfare, their air travel plans. And so we will essentially kind of cover the other expenses associated with travel. A lot of times folks will talk and discuss how airfare is about half the cost associated with attending a professional conference. The graduate school can help with the other half, essentially, for your support. So please keep those things in mind as you're developing your budgets, you're working out your proposals. Pay very close attention to how you craft your budget and make sure you're only including things that are fundable. One of the ways that students get disqualified is they put in their request, they ask for airfare, or they ask for per diem, or they request $1,000 knowing the limit is 850. These fundable, non-fundable lists is very important. This question about car rental, it's a good question. We can cover the cost of ground transportation, but car rental can be a bit challenging because car rental is typically requested to be done through the travel agent, although there is a process to rent a car. And so you would just need to make sure you adhere to the guidelines from the travel website on how to rent a car through the university and then seek the reimbursement. And then we should be able to do that. But that is one where you definitely want to review all of the rules associated with and the procedures associated with renting a car, so that that can be done. So there's a possibility there, but I will tell you that's a bit more challenging than submitting your receipts for like a bus or an Uber or something like that. Good question. Thank you for that in the chat. I appreciate it. So some examples of students that have been successful in applying for the travel grant. I like to always share these so you get an idea of what people are doing and how you can utilize this funding. And so we do have students at the master's level and the doctoral level applying and receiving this funding. It is not specific to any one program or any one level. So an example we have is one student who is in the master's program in kinesiology requesting funds to attend a virtual American Diabetes Association conference and present their research. That was selected and funded. They wrote a great proposal. And so there we were paying for the cost of their virtual registration. We have an example of a doctoral student in the PhD in Business Administration requesting funds to assist covering costs associated with taking part in the Archer Graduate Fellowship in Washington, D.C. during the summer. They specifically requested help, assistance with covering the travel costs to and from on a daily basis to their fellowship. Essentially, it was train fare. They needed a train card to drive in to go to and from their internship site all summer. And we're a great application, so we did fund that. Another more traditional example would be in the doctoral program, a PhD student in computational science requesting funds to cover registration associated with attending the American Chemical Society meeting in April, and they were presenting their poster, and that was selected. What is key there is that in each of these selected experiences, there was direct active involvement by the student. They're presenting their research, they're taking part in an internship, they're presenting a poster. It is not required that you are presenting at a conference, but I will tell you that you will have a stronger application if you're able to indicate how you're directly contributing to the conference, whether that's being a presenter or volunteering as a session reviewer or a session assistant, something that shows beyond I'm just attending, I'm also contributing or gaining from what you're doing. And so that's a tip I will give you is make sure you're finding some way to articulate in your application how are you engaging beyond just session attendance. Another follow-up question here, are international students able to receive the grant? Yes, absolutely. There is no restriction on domestic or international for the grant. And I will also say there's no restriction on travel internationally for the grant. So we've had folks apply for and receive the grant to travel internationally to a conference. So I'm trying to remember where the students went, but we did have some students that were traveling internationally, and we were able to cover the cost again of their conference attendance and a part of their hotel cost. Their overall cost was over 850, but we were able to partially and alleviate some of their expenses. So international students are welcome to apply, and international travel is okay, again, as long as you're following all of the student travel guidelines. Good questions, folks. Thank you. So, what do you need to put together to apply? It's actually not that lengthy or laborious of an application. We want to make sure that it is something you can complete well in a relatively short amount of time and is easy for us to review. And so, all we ask for is a two-page proposal that is double spaced, 12-point font with 1-inch margins. And we do check those things. So, make sure, again, you are meeting the guidelines of the proposal. If you turn in a 3-page proposal, you will be removed. But as long as you're meeting the two-page proposal with all the correct margins and things like that, you'll be good to go. In that proposal, we're going to ask you to, in non-technical way, describe what you plan to do on the trip. Remember that myself and other members of the graduate school are the reviewers, and we're not experts in your field. And so as you're talking about your research and the organization, really try to understand and kind of write your proposal to an educated audience, but not an audience that is expressly familiar with your field. Jumping back to the example of the person that went to the American Chemical Society, you wouldn't want that person to assume I know fully about their professional organizations or fully about chemical research, but you do want to explain that well in a way that an educated audience can understand it. Things you'll want to include is what organization is hosting the activity. We need to know who's doing it. Are you presenting, or are you finding some other way to be engaged at the conference? What are you presenting if you are? And then how will your participation impact UTEP's reputation, and as well as your professional growth? We want to know how you're going to engage and learn from this, and also how you'll carry forward UTEP's mission and increase our reputation by participating. We also want an explanation of how the activity contributes to the completion of your degree. You don't have to be graduating to receive it, but being able to articulate that, even if you're early in your program, this is the steps how it'll help me move towards my eventual completion. We like to hear about that. And so let us know a bit about how that'll work for you. Let us know by outlining your future career goals and articulate how that activity is going to help you advance those goals, or discuss, what professional skills you'll refine by participating. It is a professional development grant, and so we want to know exactly what your goal is as a professional, whether that's I'm going to be a faculty member, or I'm going to work in a national laboratory, I want to work in government research, or I want to work in a nonprofit. What is that goal, and how does attending this conference help you get there? If we're going to support the professional development, we want to know there's a tangible impact there. And remember, you're telling us a story, so help us understand that. And then as part, we'll also need a simple itemized budget outlining the cost of the activity, and specifying what costs you want the graduate school to pay for. My recommendation is an Excel table with an explanatory paragraph. And so giving me an Excel table saying, here's the cost, here's my estimates, and then indicating this is what I want you to pay for, right? And so this is, again, where students can sometimes make a mistake. They'll put all their expenses, but not indicate what they want us to pay for. So they'll include their airfare, they'll include their professional membership, they'll include their per diem, and tell me the total cost is $1,600, and then submit it. That will get you essentially screened out of our process as not complying with the guidelines. However, that same kind of Excel table outlining your total cost and then indicating how you're paying for what you would like us to pay for is acceptable. So indicating, the cost of airfare will be $650, and the registration for the conference is $200, and the hotel cost will be $150 a night. And then indicating on there requesting funding for your hotel and the cost of the conference is what we recommend. And again, give me an explanatory paragraph explaining how we utilize the funding. What I also recommend and will encourage you to do there is help us know how you're also helping defray the cost of attending. Again, knowing we can only provide $850, are you seeking additional funding from your program? Have you applied for a scholarship or a grant with the professional organization? A lot of times professional organizations will have something you can apply for as a student. Is your program giving you a little bit of funding associated with it? Did you apply for the Student Government Association's travel funding? Are you going to be staying in a room with another attendee to help cover the cost of the hotel? Things that help us show that you're being conscious about your budget will help you overall in the review. And so I recommend you also do that. And then the last piece of the application you'll need to include, and this isn't part of your 2-page limit, and again, it's 2-page proposal that includes the budget, 2-page maximum, is your latest individualized development plan, or IDP. And that does not count towards the page count. And so you'll have a chance to submit that as well. Do make sure that you have done a high quality individualized development plan, that your goals are well thought out, there is feedback on there from your mentor, and that it is signed, because the IDP is a scored part of the rubric. And that's actually what we're going to talk about next, is the actual rubric we use to evaluate the application and determine who receives the grant. So those are the application components. Again, 2 pages total. That includes a budget. Budget I recommend highly, not require, but highly recommend an Excel table with an explanatory paragraph, 2-page max, and an IDP. Not that labor intensive. Here is a peek at the rubric we use to evaluate your applications within the graduate school. And again, this is reviewed by staff. Essentially, what happens is myself and another staff member review your applications. You have 2 reviewers for each person, and that helps us establish your score. We average those. We first look at your proposal content overall, and how you'll be contributing to your own development, as well as the reputation of the institution, and how well you're describing what you're doing at the conference. That is scored out of 4. We look at your writing clarity, and so how well did you actually write the proposal, and we separate that. So you have your content and your writing clarity. So you may have a really, really great content, but a lot of grammatical errors, and that will be scored differently, right? Or you might have no grammatical errors, but you're not really telling us much about the experience. Those 2 are 2 separate categories, both scored out of 4 points. We will look at your budget overall. Is it well thought out? Does it include ways that you're trying to save costs? Is it appropriate for the activity? Clearly thought out. That will be scored out of 4 points. So we do evaluate your budget. And then we look at your IDP, and that's scored out of 4 points. And that sometimes can be the differentiation between whether a student is selected or not selected, is the strength of their individualized development plan. So have you written out true SMART goals? Have you sought feedback on those? Are you getting the information and the feedback from your mentor and the support there? So make sure you take some time evaluating and updating your IDP. The last thing is we do give a point if the student has attended a conference paper in the past 2 years, and we ask that question on the application. We then go through, review that, score those, average them, and then we'll propose to our dean, the folks we are able to fund. It is a very competitive application. We receive a good number of applicants each year, and then while I would love to give everybody funding, reality is that we can't. So do make sure you're paying attention to the rubric and the components and fielding the most competitive application that you can. Process from start to finish. So the online application is where you will start. That is open now, and that will be open through October 31st for the fall. We also anticipate that we will do an application in March as well for the spring. You have to have been accepted to the conference or other professional development opportunity in order to apply and be selected. And so if you're just considering attending, or you've submitted your research poster or presentation for consideration but haven't heard back yet, you'll need to wait until you are accepted in order to apply. What I will say there is that, again, the grant is done through reimbursement. And so let's say you are planning on attending a conference in the middle of October. You can apply during this cycle and then find out after the fact that you were selected and then be reimbursed for those costs. You also maybe know that you're planning on applying to attend a conference in January, but they haven't accepted you yet. And so you can't apply right now, but you can start developing your application to apply in March, even though you'll have already completed the whole experience. By the time the application opens, you can still apply. So again, know that you have essentially a full semester after an experience to still apply. It is then, once you apply, it goes to a graduate school review committee. Myself and some other folks in the graduate school review those. Again, each application will get 2 reviewers. We have more than 2 people that review in the office here, but each person gets 2 reviewers, and then we average those scores. Once we know who we're able to fund, we will send out notifications to everyone who has applied, letting you know your status. And then for folks that have been selected, we'll ask you to accept your award so that we know you're going to be using it. You then need to make sure you complete the student travel process prior to making any travel arrangements. And hopefully, again, if you're applying after you've already completed a travel experience or a professional development experience, make sure you have followed the student travel process. Please don't apply for something you've already done knowing you didn't follow the student travel process and that we can't fund you, because you'll essentially, if you win, be taking money away from a student who would be able to receive it, and we won't be able to fund you. So please don't take that out of someone else's pocket if you know you're not eligible at this point. And then for the future, make sure you follow student travel process and come back to us and apply in the future. We'd love to have that application. But again, follow that student travel process. And then coordinate with your program or department's administrative assistant for the distribution and reimbursement of funds. So essentially, when you win, we'll notify you and the administrative assistant for your program, and then you'll turn in receipts and other documentation to your administrative assistant. They'll come back to us and submit the request, and we'll transfer the funds to them. So that is how we make sure you get paid. And that is the travel process from start to finish. I want to open the floor now. I know we've had a couple of questions already, and I appreciate those. I want to see what other questions we have about the process, about the application, that I can answer for you and give you more tidbits to help you be successful. So feel free to drop those in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask the question verbally, that would be great. Either of those are fine. Question about how many people get selected. It's not a specific number. We have not a ton of money, unfortunately, to spend on travel. Every year, it depends a little bit on our budgets for actually doctoral tuition remission and other costs associated with the department and what we're able to fund. We're still navigating that, so I don't know the exact amount we'll have available. But it is not a significant number, unfortunately. And so potentially 4 if we're able to find funding. If a lot of folks request less than 850, I can fund more people. But if everyone is requesting the amount, the number of people I can fund goes down. And those aren't hard numbers either. I have to look at the budget with our director of administration and say, okay, where do we finally fall out and how much can we give for the travel grant this semester? Good question. Another question here is Airbnb considered a major hotel chain for refund? That has become more acceptable and you should be able to, but what I would recommend is working with your departmental admin before doing Airbnb to make sure that you have all the correct documentation and approvals. Because again, a lot of what will dictate on whether or not you can be reimbursed will be a university process for what is reimbursable. And so again, you can apply and put it a great budget and Jesse can be like, yes, that's amazing. We're going to fund you $850. If you don't have the correct receipts or the correct processes, the university won't issue it to you. So make sure you follow up with your admin as well as the travel website to make sure you have all the correct documentation to make that work. See here, other question. If I had a conference this past week and wasn't funded, can I still apply? Yes, you can, absolutely. As long as you followed the student travel process and all your approvals and things like that, the process was done, you can apply basically up to 1 semester after. And so it's all done by reimbursement. And so you know that you spent, and actually what I found is sometimes the students that have already completed an activity have a bit more of a competitive application because they can talk in a really concrete way about how the experience helped them develop or what they gained from it, because they're using a retrospective lens of this is what I did versus this is what I plan to do. So yes, you can still apply. Question here about fundable items. Says the fundable items have to come with the travel authorization receipts. Does that receipt need to show name, card? Oftentimes, it just needs to be the associated costs. Like when I travel as a professional staff member, I have to turn in a receipt that shows the hotel I stayed at, Typically includes my name on it, but I don't think that's typically required, but typically as the person making the reservation, it's on there. And then the overall costs as a cost breakdown. If you have things like a membership or registration, if there's a receipt, it may or may not include your name, but as long as it includes the organization, you should be able to make that connection. And then things like an Uber receipt or something like that's not going to have your name on it, but it needs to have the direct cost that you're requesting. So a part of that will depend a little bit on the type of receipt you're submitting and what information is usually available on it, because that's what fiscal and audit is going to look at, is what would they reasonably expect? Good question. Other questions? All righty. Well, I'm not seeing a whole lot of other questions. I will stay on if there are more questions you want to ask in a more one-on-one or in a smaller group, or if something still you're still thinking of something. That's totally fine. I'll stay on until everybody exits. But that is our overall session today. I am recording this, and within a couple of days, probably the end of the week, I will post this to our website. And so if you want to revisit these riveting session talking about travel grants, to review what we said, or maybe you remember something but can't remember exactly, or you came in a little bit late, I will post this to our website in our workshops and events page under the funding section. So you can get all that content, or maybe refer a friend who also wants to apply. If you have questions you didn't think of during the session, email those to gradtravel@utep.edu and let us know about that. And then I'm going to drop the attendance URL one more time here in the chat. If you didn't already, please make sure you log your attendance for me. That really helps us show our participation by our students so we can keep doing these types of sessions. So please let me know you were here. And if you got questions, shoot me an email. I'll put that email here as well, so you've got it. But send us emails. I'd be happy to answer those questions. Other than that, though, that's our session for today. I wish you well. Looking forward to reading your applications. And again, I'll hold on just in case there are questions folks want to ask in small group. I'll wait till everybody exits.